Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for week 38 of Build Your Stash and Craft. This week we are going to do coffee dyed and tea dyed paper. Katie Maganity requested that I do tea dyed and coffee dyed paper, and I thought that would be something nice to have in our stash. So we're going to start with the tea dyed paper, and the directions say use 2 bags, I think it was. It says use 2 of these tea bags to 8 cups of water. And these are larger tea bags. And so I used 3 bags of the tea to 4 cups of water to make it extra strong. And I boiled the water first, then turned it off and put in the tea bags to steep. And I had first put some water in my pan to see what fit well, and 4 cups of water fit well without overflowing, and it would allow me enough room to put the papers in. Now we also have our paper towels, and I am going to put the paper towels on my table here so that when I take my tea dyed and coffee dyed papers out, I can set them on paper towel. Now I usually do this in the evening, and then I just spread towels out all over my counter, and I put newspaper underneath, and then I just let them sit overnight to dry, just 1 layer thick. So, you can dry it with your heat gun. You can, I've seen people dry them in the oven. I don't particularly, me with paper in the oven, that just doesn't thrill me. So I don't do that. I will do it with a heat gun if I'm in a hurry. And, and you can, like I said, you can go and look for other channels that are showing you how to do this, and they'll tell you like what temperature to put it in your oven at and how long. I just don't really like that, so I just don't do that. But you can set it out in the sunshine. I've just pulled out a couple of pieces of paper here, and I pulled out some from my scribble pad, and I pulled out some from the sketch pad, and both of those came from the Dollar Tree. The sketch pad we got this time. The scribble pad we got a while ago. And all you're going to do is you're going to put your papers in there, and you're going to let them sit for just a little bit, and then you're going to take them out and set them on your paper towels. Now you can dry them. Ooh, this paper looks kind of cool. It's got little marks in it as it's getting wet. The longer you let it sit, the darker it will get. But depending, like with that scribble pad, that's kind of like newsprint. You're not really going to want to sit too long, because what could happen is it could really fall apart when you take it out. But like I said, if you let it sit in there a little bit longer, it will get darker. You can put more tea in your water, and that will make it darker. If you make some tea and your paper is just darker than you wanted it to be, you can add a little bit of water to your tea mixture to lighten it up a little bit. If it's not dark enough, you can add tea to darken it up a bit. So I'm going to, that was probably maybe about a minute, and we will take that out. I had bubbles on it, and I don't like the bubbles, but if you leave the bubbles, it will get you extra texture. I'm going to set that aside. Now, I just set it aside. I did not dry it off, and the tea will kind of like what's on the top will kind of maybe run here or there a little bit, and if you leave that, those spots will be darker. If you dry it off, then it will be more of an even tone. But I'm going to leave that one set, and now we're going to take that same paper, and I am going to use Monica Eggleton. When I did my rippers, she said she uses a foil, the ripper off of her foil box when it's empty. And I just emptied one the other day, and I thought I'm going to keep that and use it for the tea dyed paper. So I'm just going to put it down on here and rip this piece in half. So, and then we can kind of see what it looks like on the ripped edge, because it possibly could soak in. I have not done tea dyed paper in a really long time. And I love the tea dye papers because I don't like the smell of the coffee dyed papers. Although the only thing that I drink is coffee. And so I don't know why I don't like the coffee papers. I don't know. And then I'm going to take this other half and I'm going to crumple it up while it's dry. You don't want to, when it's wet, you have to be really careful crumpling something. But I want those cracks to possibly pick up more of the tea dye. So we'll do that. And then get this one in here. And don't throw your tea bags away, because there's something we're going to try in a little bit with the tea bags. And we'll have to see how it works. I'm going to put that one in there and let it sit for a minute. And we'll take this one out. And there we go. And see how the, whoops, let me put that back in there since I dropped it off, but you can see how the tea kind of like just goes where it wants to when you set it down. So when you set it over on your paper towel, it will have little spots like that, and those spots will wind up a little bit darker. And if you want to, you can arrange it so that it kind of sits in one spot longer than another. So, but let's see how it looks with the crinkles in it and see what kind of difference that makes, if any. And it does it. It picks up in those cracks more than anywhere else. That makes it really look like old parchment. That makes it look like old paper. That's really cool. So we've got that. Now we'll try the scribble pad. Now the scribble pad is a little bit tan all on its own. Not really, you know, it has a touch of color to it. So it might wind up just a touch darker than the white paper did. Or it could wind up exactly the same. Now if you take your papers and set them on top of each other, and then dry them with your heat gun or let them dry that way, where they touch each other, the tea will pool and it will make marks. You can put doilies in there. I tried to find some doilies at the Dollar Tree and they did not have any. But you can tea dye your doilies and then put your doily between a couple pieces of paper and let them all dry and get some marks that way. You never know exactly what you're going to get. Maybe someone who does it all the time might have tricks to get what they want each time, but you know, I do it so infrequently that I've never been able to make something happen. It just happens the way that it happens. And I'm going to set this one aside. And then we're going to do the same with this one. We're going to rip it to see if the ripped edge makes a difference. Which on the other one, let me show you. This one here is our ripped edge. It really doesn't. I thought it might soak in the tea a little bit more. And I have a plastic tablecloth on my table. So, and my paper towel is sitting on that. You don't want to set it, like if you have a white countertop, don't put your paper towels on your countertop and then put your tea dyed papers on it, because that tea will soak through those paper towels. And it will dye your countertop. So we'll see what this one looks like crinkled up. And then as soon as I pull these out, I'm going to stop for a minute. Oh, see, that one had a little wet spot on it, and when I crinkled it, it already has a hole. Whoops. And then straightening it, I made the hole bigger. But that actually, that's not wasted paper, because, you know, all of the old parchments that you see, they do have holes here and there. So, you know, that will still make a really nice page. And this did turn out just a touch darker than the white paper did. And what I'm going to do is I think I will dry them with my heat gun. That crack really picked up some nice color. I think that I am going to dry them with my heat gun, and then I will be back to show you what these look like. and we'll make some coffee dyed paper. I'm going to take you down for just a second. Hopefully not get too shaky here. But this is what I have. So this is these two here, and they are overlapped. Those are the kids' paper. I forget, scribble paper, so is this. And then this is the white paper, and our white scruffy paper, and our white just half a page that we ripped the edge. So see how that's got the pooling going on? So when I dry that, so long as I don't put it really close and make it move, that should dry darker in those spots. That's what I'm thinking. So, and also, it looks like this page might be picking up a little bit of the texture from the paper towels. So that's really kind of cool too. So I'm going to dry these off and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we've got the coffee. I was going to show you mixing it, but when I poured the water in there, the steam steamed everything up. So I have 4 cups of water and 7 spoonfuls of the instant coffee. And so we're just going to do exactly the same as before. We'll start with our white paper, and we'll do a full sheet, and then we will do the half sheets. You don't want to rub too much on your paper because you'll make it pill up a little bit. So we're just going to like press it down and let that coffee soak in. And then I'll show you what the tea dye papers look like when we're done here. Now you can put in, more than one piece of paper at a time. You don't have to do just one piece. But being that I'm just showing you what I'm doing, I don't want to put in too much all at once. Get my paper towel here and dry off my hands. So I've done the same as before. Sorry about bumping the table. A regular piece and then a piece that's ripped in half. Now our color on this is very, very light. So I really think that next time I might want to do a little bit more coffee. And that's, you just have to play with it and see what is to your liking. I thought the coffee dyed would be quite a bit darker than the tea dye would. And of course I'm not timing it, so I'm not sure how long I left the tea dye in versus how long this has been in. So there's our coffee dye, and I'm going to set that aside. And I put out some clean paper towels. I didn't use the same paper towels as before because they were wet. And I did dry them. Now I've got one that I crinkled up and one that's just flat that has a ripped edge on it. But yes, when I was done drying the tea dyed paper, then I went ahead and I dried my napkins, my paper towels also. And they're 2-ply, so I split them in half so that they're just 1-ply, so that if I go to glue them on a book or something, I don't forget. And as I was drying them, they were kind of separating a little bit, so I made sure that I just separated them. Because whenever you use a napkin or a paper towel or anything like that on a project that's 2 or 3-ply, you have to make sure that you get down to just 1-ply or it won't. If I would have left it 2-ply, the bottom ply would have glued down and the top ply would have come off. So just kind of work those around in there a little bit. You don't really have to do what I'm doing. It's just, I'm just doing it. You can just put them in there and let them set. And again, if you let them sit a little bit longer, I think that they'll get a little bit darker. Even the first one that we did, when I put it back in for a minute, it got a little bit darker than when I first pulled it out. So we'll just kind of move those around in there. And I'll show you why I said to keep your coffee grounds, or to keep your tea bag, because what I did was I made just some texture paste. I just put a little bit here, but it's really nice and stuck on there. It's got a lot of great texture, and of course brown may not be your favorite color, but this would look really kind of nice on the cover of like a vintage book. And so what I did to make that was I went ahead and I used the funnel that we had from left over from last week, and just held it on top of my glue bottle. My glue bottle was open, and they just are the same size. So I just held it right there, cut my tea bag open and poured it in here, and then I just used a skewer to just poke it down into the glue. This was a half a bottle of glue and then 1 tea bag, and that's what gave me this look. Now the other thing that I put in here was I put 6 pumps of hand sanitizer, because this has got a lot of alcohol in it, and I thought that might help it not to mold. It made it a little bit too thin, and I'm not sure if that's what made it take so long to dry, but it did take quite a while to dry. I let it sit for an hour, and it still was not quite dry, especially like in the thicker spot. So then I dried it with my heat gun. So maybe just put like a pump of hand sanitizer in there. That just puts some rubbing alcohol in there, which hopefully, I don't really know the science of it, but it might help it so that it doesn't mold as fast. And then whenever you make anything homemade like that, here's our paper. You just want to, just keep a check on it once in a while. And well, that one looks really nice. Just make sure it hasn't molded. If it's molded, well, you'll have to just throw it away. The worst that I had wasted would have been a half of a bottle of glue if I never used it before I had to throw it away, because the tea bag you're going to throw away anyways. So here's our kids paper that's kind of like a newsprint. So yeah, so I made that texture paste, and I thought that might be nice to put on the cover of a book, and then put these tea dyed and coffee dyed papers inside that book as pages. And I thought that that might look really, really nice. So I may do that, and if I do, I'll show it to you when I get it done. But I'm going to let that one sit in there, and I'm going to put in the other 2 also, and let those sit for a second. And while those are sitting in the coffee for just a minute, I'm going to show you the tea dyed papers. Yeah, definitely, I think next time I would definitely put more coffee in here. I don't want to put it in right now because the water has cooled down, because I didn't want the steam to steam up the camera lens. And so I think if I put some in there right now, I don't think it would dissolve. But these are our tea dyed papers. And let me grab a sheet of the regular paper so you can see the change in the paper. So this is the regular paper. Whoops, actually I've got my light in the wrong spot. I moved it out of the way when the steam started coming up. So this is our regular kids paper. And then here is our crinkled paper. So we got a nice change there. And actually, I don't know that the camera's actually showing the change as much as it is. And here is our other half. And we got some really nice, excuse me, markings on this one. And then here is our full sheet. And it looks very nice. It looks like old parchment. And again, we got a lot of nice color. Excuse me. And then here's the regular paper with our wrinkled one. I love the looks of that. And then here is the one that was just with the ripped edge. But look at this really nice markings in here. And if you like, when you're drying them, especially if you're like letting them sit to dry or something, stick a rock on top. Just try different things to, I'll show you the difference in color here. Isn't that beautiful? It really is nice, and won't that make beautiful book pages? And then, I wanted to show you, well, I just have the paper towels here, which would make nice texture also on the front of a book. Also would make some flowers. You could make tea roses. And then, after I dumped out the pan, there was just a little bit of water or tea sitting on the bottom. So I took this piece of paper and I just set it in there and pressed it down and just let it sit. And then I dried it just like it was. And this is what I got with that. And I really like the looks of that. You can see the little square marks and everything. I thought that turned out really cool also. So I'm going to do the same with the coffee. After I pour it out, I'm going to put a piece of paper in there. So we're going to take this out. And that's what that one looks like. And let's see about our wrinkly one. Now with this kids paper, you do have to be really careful. Okay, it took the wrinkles out. That's quite funny because they were all crushed up when I put them in there, but this is such a thin paper. This did take the tea, or did take the coffee a little bit darker. I'm just going to put this over here. And then what I thought that I would do while one is still wet, I'll bring our wrinkly one back over again since it really doesn't look wrinkled. I just wanted to, hold on, set that down. I wanted to sprinkle just a little bit of the coffee on top of it and set it aside and see what that does. So I'm just going to sprinkle some on here, right on the water. Now we'll let this side just sit, and this side I will rub a little bit, maybe get a little bit more of our water and rub it a little bit. If you do this on a flat surface, I'm sure that it will work even better. But that'll give us two different looks. One where we just let it melt and one where we kind of rub it in. So there's that. So we'll see what that looks like when it dries. Now this probably won't completely melt, and I'll have to, after it dries, brush off what's left. But so we'll see what that looks like when it dries, because that's the instant coffee. And I'm sure that you can do coffee dyeing with regular coffee out of your coffee pot. You'll just want to make it kind of strong. And I've got some kind of trying to melt that a little bit. So that is our coffee paper, and I'm going to dry those off, and I will be back in just a minute. Okay, so I'm back with the coffee dried papers, and I thought we'd just go through and do the comparison. So this is our coffee dyed that I left in the bottom of the pan, and this is our tea dyed. So kind of in coloring, this has more of a cool tone to it, the coffee, and the tea is a little bit warmer. And then let's see, what do we have here? This is our flat clear coffee and our flat tea dyed. So the tea took a little bit darker. I think that next time I would put more coffee in my water for the coffee. And then here is our tea dyed half paper, regular paper, and our coffee dyed half paper. So definitely different color tones there. So it's really kind of nice to do both, because it's nice to get those different color tones. And then this is the one that I put the coffee on, and it just dried, and I dried it with the heat gun too, but it dried that way. I didn't brush anything off, and so that's how that turned out. And then our regular coffee dyed kids paper alongside of our tea dyed kids paper. And again, there's just a bit of a different tone to them. And then there's our wrinkled one, which this was supposed to be the wrinkled one, but all the wrinkles came out when I put it in the coffee. And then our kids paper, coffee dyed and tea dyed. So those are our papers. They turned out really cool, I think. And I am going to put them in a book. So I kind of thought, I got to thinking about how I was going to make my book. And I decided to make the book on a different video. So I spliced in this piece to show you all of our lovely papers. We have our really pretty dyed paper towels, and we've got the two-tones and the added coffee. There's so many things you can do with dyings of paper, and the coffee dye just makes a really nice, it's a nice subtle background. It's really pretty. If you like these tones, I love the brown tones. So But I hope that you enjoyed making the paper. Katie, I hope that this helped you out. And for what we're going to need for next week, I got these at the Dollar Tree. And so we are going to need this package. These are in the kids' toy section. These are little Play-Doh shapes, and they're little cookie cutters. So you want something little cookie cutters with some shapes to them. This has other little pieces in it too, a little brayer and things like that that we could use for other things. But what we're looking for is little cookie cutters to make some shapes with, and also a 4-pack of toilet paper. So that's what we're going to need for next week, along with our water glue, and we are going to make some charms next week. So, or little embellishments for our projects. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will be back to do a video on the book, and it will be a supplement video to this. So thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate all of your time, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.